Colleen. I'm the Forest Health Watershed Planner with the Maryland Forest Service. Most of my job deals with trying to manage EAB. So before I get into this, I just want to kind of say your management options are going to vary a lot based on your site conditions. So if you've got ash trees like around your home or along the street, something like that, you're going to have a lot more management options than if you're dealing with ash in the woodland. And then within forested systems, depending on how wet your site is, that's going to dictate what your management options are. But I wanted to start by just showing a few more pictures to kind of give a sense of, depending on those site conditions, what are your management options going to be like. So this is a picture from Martineck State Park. It's right near one of the Biocontrol release sites, right along the Choptank River there. And you can see all those trees down there on the fringe are ash, and you can see how wet it is in there. A site like that, you're probably not going to be able to have a lot of management. There are also these places where a foot in elevation change can make all the difference. So you can see kind of the wet, muddy area where you've got some ash growing, and then they also kind of go up onto the banks a little bit. So if you're lucky enough to have some dry sites with ash, or drier sites with ash, maybe you can do a little bit. As Andy mentioned, you've got this kind of hummock topography. So the individual ash trees might be on dry land, but getting around in that site is going to be the limiting factor. And then there are also sort of these, I guess maybe they're these back swamps that Chris mentioned. That was a new term for me. But you can see you've got the wet leaf litter there, but then right around your ash trees, it's a little bit dry. You can see off in the background, it's also a little drier in there, so maybe you can at least get some equipment in there. You might at least be able to do replanting in a site like that. And then I wanted to show this picture just to kind of mention, not all of our ash trees on the eastern shore are small and crummy. This is about a 30-inch diameter tree at Tuckahoe State Park. Behind me, from where I was taking this picture, there were a dozen more just like it. Actually, down the trail a little bit, there was a 60-inch diameter. I think it was a pumpkin ash, actually. So we do have large ash trees around. They're kind of scattered. And you need to go out into the woods to look for them, because those are the trees that are really worth trying to do something about. So chemical treatment is our only real defense against EAB. It's the only way to make sure that you're saving your tree. There are a few chemicals out there that are available for homeowner use, but those are coming off the market. Well, as of 2018, they're going to require a pesticide applicator license to purchase. So I just stuck with these. All these chemicals here require a pesticide applicator's license to use. And let's see if I can find the pointer. Okay, if you're anywhere in like a wet area or near a wet area, you cannot do some of these soil drenches or granular products. Anything close to a stream, you're going to be looking at trunk injections. The best chemical treatment that we have right now are trunk injections with Emamectin Benzoate. The common brand name for that is Triage. And the treatments are effective for about 2 to 3 years. The residual is actually 5 years. So what people are kind of thinking, starting in the lake states where they've already been hit really hard with EAB, is while the EAB population is high in an area, you'd need to treat every 2 to 3 years. But then maybe once it crashes, we can space those treatments out to every 5 years and then monitor in between. But we're not at that point yet here on the eastern shore. Again, this chemical does need to be applied by a licensed pesticide applicator, which makes it a little bit more expensive. Costs roughly $10 per diameter inch, and that's for urban environments. If you're going to have a company come out and work in the woods, I'm guessing that's going to be more expensive because it's going to take a lot longer for them to do the work. And the best time to treat is in about early to mid-spring, right when the buds are breaking. Because treatments are expensive, you can't treat every tree in the forest. You have to be selective. So usually we recommend treatments in developed areas where you're going to have the kind of biggest impact. So You want to start treating when you're within about 10 to 15 miles of the infestation, which is actually a good portion already of the eastern shore. So we know we have EAB on Ken Island, St. Michael's, Easton, and Cambridge. You want to be looking for trees that are still healthy. You don't want to wait for them to start showing signs of dieback before you start treating. And once a tree has more than about 30% canopy dieback, it's usually too late to treat them. You want to look for trees that are in good condition. They don't have any like major wounds or cavities. Basically, if you're going to be investing all the money into treatment, you want to make sure that that tree's not going to die from something else. Usually larger trees kind of give you more bang for your buck. They are more valuable aesthetically usually. They've got some more ecological value. And then lastly, just, you want to think about, are these trees important to me to save? If they're not important to you, do you really want to invest all the money in treatment? That's something for you to kind of weigh. In natural areas, we don't usually talk about treatment because you can't go across a whole stand of ash and treat every single tree. But up in Pennsylvania, they've started using this approach, and some of the national parks here in our area have also started using it. We're adopting it. We did a treatment out in Savage River State Forest, where you can treat some clusters of trees in natural areas so that when the EAB wave moves through and most of the ash trees die, you still have a seed source that can provide new ash into that area. And one thing about ash trees, they're either male or female. So you need to treat multiple trees to get pollination. It's a little bit hard to tell whether you're dealing with a male or a female tree. The females have seeds part of the year. The males will sometimes get like flower galls. But for the most part, if you're just going to try and treat a couple of trees, you'll have a better chance of getting both into the mix there. All the other same rules apply within about 10 to 15 miles of an infestation, less than 30% dieback, good condition. Probably want to look at some of the more dominant trees in your system, almost like kind of a seed tree approach. And then for this approach, you're probably going to be looking at trees that have some important ecosystem value. Maybe you've got some rare species of ash. Maybe you've got like an extensive riparian stand, something like that. But again, there are restrictions near water. If you've got ash trees that are growing like in the water, you can't treat those. So it's going to kind of depend on what your site characteristics are like. And this is a map of some of those rare species. This is from the Natural Heritage Program. They're plots. So you can see, got black ash out here in Garrett, and a little bit through the rest of the state. Pumpkin ash, this is the chop tank, Nanacoke, Pocomoke. And then there's one little triangle there where we know we've got Caroline ash. Okay, removals. So this applies to places where you've got ash trees growing near homes or roads or, some kind of target that would be impacted. When ash trees become infested, they become really dry and brittle, and they tend to snap very quickly after becoming infested. This is a picture of what that looks like. This is from out in Washington County. So if you've got ash trees growing, in those areas near homes and things like that, and you're not going to treat them, you need to have them, I would recommend having them removed, as soon as they become infested. A lot of tree care companies will not climb a tree that's become infested with emerald ash borer, so then they need to bring in like a crane or a bucket truck to do the removals. It makes it way more expensive, and then the longer you leave it standing, the greater safety risk you have. Where you remove trees, you should try and replace them. We try and work with people to replant with a diversity of species. If you've got riparian areas, you might be able to underplant. So you go in while the ash are still standing and plant new trees so that when the ash trees come down, you've already got native regeneration going. Again, even planting is going to be limited by how wet your site is. So everything depends on your site conditions. And if you're doing any planting, remember to try and control the invasive plants in the area. So we want our native trees to be coming back in, not the invasive ones. In a woodlot, you might have some silvicultural options. So the idea here is to, number one, reduce the ash component in your forest. So in some places you might have trees that are of a marketable size, and you might be able to do some harvesting. You do want to leave some ash though in the stand for the chance that some of them might be those lingering ash that are surviving. Just kind of keep some diversity in the stand. The second goal is to then diversify the stand. So maybe do some replanting, maybe just encourage the regeneration of the other species that are in the area. But remember, if you're dealing with ash, you're probably going to be near a body of water. So, you've got to make sure you're maintaining your riparian buffers, and look around and see if, all the other trees are ash also. So, all the trees are going to be dying. But I would recommend talking to your local forester to kind of assess what your options might be for a harvest. Heather mentioned biocontrol, so I won't talk about it too much, but this is, again, just kind of our long-term strategy. We are working on an IPM approach, which combines treatments of selected trees with biocontrol releases in the area, so you might be able to protect a few in the short term while we work towards some better long-term management. This isn't something you can do on your own property, but it is something that we're working on across the state. And most importantly, spread the word and not the bug. EAB is a new issue on the shore, so I encourage you to talk to your friends, your neighbors, your local governments. I work with local governments to help do management planning. So if any of you sit on like town councils and things like that, I'm happy to come out and talk to them. You can, according to regulations, move ash products around the shore, but there's a lot of areas that are still not infested, so I would recommend not moving any ash firewood, actually any species of firewood or other ash products. This is my contact info. That's it.